Okay, I got a question for you. What's got 7 heads, 14 legs, 7 wheels, a combined experience of nearly 200 years, and lives in the cornfields of Iowa? Any ideas?
The Hanson family?
You've got it right. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with the Hanson family. We've got Mark Hanson, we've got Krista Fay, who's the mum, and we've got Krista Barrett, who's the 21-year-old daughter. So it's a very unusual thing to be speaking to a family who are unicyclists and jugglers and have an act and who are in a sense, breaking into the entertainment industry and building that in a rural area where, you know, a small population, and also basing that around a family, which is a dynamic unit which changes. So look, there's lots to talk about here. I'd like to break it down into 3 parts. And the first one is we're going to talk about who you are. And then I'm going to talk about what you've learned about performing, because you've got some interesting things to say. And then I want to talk about your marketing. And I want to talk about your website, because it's sort of funny. You were telling me you didn't think it was very good. I actually think it's a really good website. And I want to, let people look at that and get some ideas and pointers from that. So first of all, who is the Hanson family?
The Hanson family is a 7-member troupe, is what we've been called lately, the Hanson Family Jugglers or Unicyclists. There's all kinds of different names that people use for us. But there's Mark Hanson, the dad, and my wife, Krista. Then my daughter is 21 years old. Then I have a 19-year-old daughter, and a 17, a 15, and a soon-to-be 12-year-old son. So we got 3 boys, 2 girls, and then the mom and dad. And we love kids. We love entertaining kids, and we really just discovered that in the last few years. I guess you could say, as we're breaking in, we want to become professional children entertainers because they're like the greatest audience in the world. So that's who we are.
How did you get to be to this point? Because obviously you've been juggling for a long time and unicycling has come into it. So just take us back a bit and give us a bit of a chronological graph, not in minute detail, but tell us how this has come to be.
Sure. Well, when you said that we were kind of breaking in, I've been breaking in. I'm 61 years old. I've been breaking in since 1975. I taught myself how to juggle in 1970. I was 16 years old. And then I I learned one trick, and a few years later I went in the military, and I taught myself a few more tricks by watching television shows. Now, back then it was all about watching TV and not having DVDs and all the other options that kids have available today. So I taught myself by watching television. I did my first magic show. I was stationed in the Azores. They're islands owned by the Portuguese. The U.S. has a base there. And some people knew that I could juggle. And I performed a juggling show for kids at a Christmas party. So that was my very first show. It didn't go very well. I failed miserably. I dropped more than I caught. And partway through the show, a little kid in the back said, "Get another juggler." So it was a little bit embarrassing and traumatic. But that was my initial break-in. And then over the years, of course, I joined juggling clubs and I got better as a juggler. And then later, my daughter, and I'll let her take over from here, she was the first one in our family who learned how to unicycle. Just take briefly.
So this is Krista Barrett. I learned how to unicycle when I was 7. We had friends who were staying with us as they moved from one house to another, and they could unicycle, and they went on vacation for 2 weeks, and I decided that I was going to teach myself to unicycle before they got back. So I went out in our driveway, and I had mom and dad kind of help me, and I leaned against our van and just rode around our van for 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, when my friends got back, I was able to unicycle a little bit. I could push off of a wall and ride for, a couple feet. And I thought it was so cool. And we were in Minneapolis at the time, and they have the Twin Cities Unicycle Club, which is the biggest one in the world, at least at that point. So we started going there a couple times a week. And with all those amazing unicyclists around, you learned very quickly. And then I started getting into competitions. And a year later, when I was 8, I won the National North American Unicycling Championship for my age group.
Yeah. So we, as a family, then we all learned how to unicycle. And then I taught my kids how to juggle. And then when we initially were living in Minneapolis, we moved to Iowa. and we started doing parades, and people discovered us just because we were a big family who could juggle and unicycle. And then we were invited to start doing little mini shows, and sometimes for free, and a lot of times for a nominal fee. And that's kind of our genesis, or the history was I started juggling, she started unicycling, and then everybody learned how to juggle and unicycle. So that's kind of where we're at now.
So let's just talk about where that drive comes from, because Mark, you hold a couple of world records for speed juggling, and Christopher, Mum, you hold the most unusual world record that I have known, of making a giant paper snowflake. So and Krista Barrett, you to hold world records at an early age, there's obviously a drive and a focus and a determination, a gene within you. Do you recognise within yourselves that you all share that?
Well, people ask us, or I should say, they tell us that we're so natural and amazing, and I guess in a way we are amazing because of the things that we've been able to do. But trust me, I am not a natural juggler at all. Every trick that I've ever learned has come through just hard work and a lot of patience. No trick came instantly overnight. As a matter of fact, there's some tricks that I can do now that literally took me 3 years to learn how to do. And the speed juggling part was I'll say it was kind of a fluke. The reason why I got fast is because I live in a small house with low ceilings. I had to juggle fast because the ceilings were low. I couldn't do the big tricks, the 7-ball tricks and everything. Because my ceiling was low, I juggled. I got into I'm kind of anal about my juggling tricks. I always want them to look perfect, and I decided to make them smaller and smaller. I was really curious to see how small and tight a pattern I could juggle. I had no idea. It never dawned on me that a small pattern was a fast pattern. And I used to brag to my kids and say, I would show them my small pattern, and I'd say, oh, look, the world's fastest pattern. Or I would say that I'm the fastest juggler in the world. And they would kind of laugh it off. And they would say, well, how would you know? What do you have it to measure against? Well, one day, one of my daughters brought home the Guinness Book of World Records, and she opened it up to the world's fastest juggler page. And it was, the record is measured for 1 minute, how many catches you make in 1 minute. And at the time, it was 339 catches in 1 minute. And the first time I tried it, they said, Dad, see if you can beat it. The first time I tried it, I did 360 catches. And I thought, there's no way I could be breaking a world record that easily, just without even warming up. So I did it again several more times. And sure enough, I was going faster. And then I started practicing. And when I broke the world record of 339, I did 417 catches. And then a few years ago, I did 520 catches in a minute, and that's what the current record is. But again, it was only because I practiced all my patterns really small. And it took me years to get that fast because it's really hard to juggle that tight of a pattern for a minute without dropping. So that was my claim to fame. It's only hard work. Yeah. A lot of patience.
Yeah, and I think with unicycling, all us kids, we've been homeschooled since kindergarten up. So with unicycling, I think we didn't really do any other sports. We didn't have the soccer and the basketball and the football and that we never took dance. And so it's kind of like that was our sport. That was the thing that we did in clubs, and it was what we did for fun. So it's kind of our PE as homeschooling is go learn to ride the unicycle. So that's part of it is sort of, it's an easy thing to do. Once we bought the unicycles, it was an easy thing to do outside in the street, and it was sort of our one sort of sports, because you can do it by yourself. You don't have to have a bunch of people around. So it was kind of our outlet for doing something physical.
Christopher, did you recognise this in your early years with Mark, that he was this focus-driven person?
I did enjoy him because he juggled when I first met him.
But does this carry through to other parts in life? I'm just wondering. The reason I'm asking for this is because for you to be a 7-member juggling and unicycle family troupe is not an easy thing. I mean, you need someone driving that. Who drives that?
Parents probably do. Yeah. I mean, Mark's competitive. Krista's competitive. The other kids aren't so competitive. Yeah. And we've had the discussion. They may complain about practicing, and my comment is always, if you have something else you'd really like to do, you don't have to do this. and you can do something else. But the only thing they come up with is video games. And I said, sorry, that won't do.
That's not an option.
You get that for a little while, but that's not what you're going to major in.
Yeah, basically saying you need to be passionate about something. And if there isn't something else that you're going to work equally hard at, then it's going to be unicycling, juggling, or come up with something to put in the show. If it's not juggling, it's, doing the Diablo or doing balancing. We've just started adding acrobatics, kind of pairs acrobatics into the mix.
And they're enjoying that a lot.
Yeah,
too.
it's really fun.
So, Christopher, you were saying that Mark juggled when you met him. So, did you come into this willingly, or did you sort of come? were you in a sense the reluctant partner who's just ended up pleasing the other half to make it all work?
Well, we like to do stuff together. So when they learned to unicycle, I tried and I worked really hard. It didn't come easy for me at all, and it still doesn't. I did finally pass my first level of unicycling when I was 7 months pregnant with Caleb, and one of the ladies tricked me into it, and I passed. But I've never gotten much further because I do not have a competitive bone in my body. Yeah. But I like to do things with my family, so
I'd actually say Mom is the one who really pushes us to do things. She's like, you can do it. It takes a lot of work, but you can go out and do it. Stop complaining.
Exactly. She is the vote of confidence because I lack confidence. Mm-hmm. And that's what kept me out of entertaining for so many years, was a lack of confidence. I could do stuff, and people told me you should do that, but I go, whatever. I'm just too. I was chicken. I was very afraid.
Well, I think you're chicken. Well, part of it is he's a perfectionist, and when you're a perfectionist, if you can't do it absolutely perfect every single time, you feel like you shouldn't ever do it.
Yeah.
And juggling or unicycling is something that is it's very obvious when you fail.
Yeah.
Right.
You can cover up a mistake in a play. You can cover up a mistake in magic. But when you're juggling, when you drop, everybody knows it. Yeah. When you fall off your unicycle, everyone knows it. It's a very obvious mistake. Yeah. So that's something that we've struggled with, is you got to get that routine so there's no drops. You got to get that routine so there's no falling off. Mm-hmm. And, you kind of have to balance that worry of not being perfect.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's explore this a bit further, because you've hit upon something that so many people getting into entertaining are worried about, and that is that confidence, and it's confidence that fear of failure on so many different levels. Because what Krista B, you were saying before, was that in magic, you can hide mistakes. And it's really interesting, because that's one of the big differences between magic and juggling, is that magic, you spend your whole career trying to make everything invisible. And the more invisible it becomes, the better, in fact, your technique is. Look, nobody saw me even do it. Sort of thing, whereas completely the opposite with what you guys do, and that's on display. And you were saying that you had the lack of confidence there, Mark, and I just see you actually sent me an email. I'm just reading it here as I'm looking here now, and you even say in this email now that you've got a lack of confidence in your abilities, and you tend to negatively compare yourself to world-class jugglers and unicyclers when you watch them on YouTube. Now, this is really interesting, because I'm really in awe of what you're doing at this point in your life with your family. I love taking on new challenges myself, and so I'm really interested in how you're handling this, and how you're dealing with that fear of failure, and what techniques that you're putting in place.
Well, the best book we read recently was David Kaye's Seriously Silly. It is amazing. That should be on everybody's. And we're jugglers primarily. I'm learning magic, but we have been adapting his psychology and techniques of performing for children into our juggling and unicycle act. And what I've discovered over the years is I have juggled for children. Initially, when I was juggling for children, I was trying to be a world-class performer, trying to amaze them. Okay, big failure. That's the last thing in the world kids want to be, is amazed. They want to be amused. So what happened was, whenever I dropped, they would laugh. Now, initially, I took it personally. They're laughing at me, but they weren't. they were laughing because it was funny. It's funny when an adult fails. And that's why, say, David Ginn or Silly Billy, when they fail as a magician, it's funny. And so they do it on purpose. They script that into their show. So what I've been doing over the last year or two is scripting in drops into my show because I know the kids are going to laugh their heads off. And it's been a big help for me knowing that I don't have to juggle perfectly for children if I script the show correctly and add the drops in with the gag lines. And now I have, my confidence level has gained enormously because I understand the psychology of children, because that's what we've been studying, how to make children have fun while now I'm having fun because I don't care if I drop. I can drop anytime, as many times as I want, and it doesn't negatively impact the show. It actually makes the show better. Why? Because kids are the best audience in the world. If you understand children and how they think and what they're looking for and what they want, when you know that, performing for children is actually pretty simple and a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think that helped with our confidence, was finding a great audience. We started out by doing, little local festivals and nursing homes, which are hard audiences. There's not a lot of reaction from the crowd. As soon as we started doing library shows for kids,
oh man,
it was amazing. Our first summer of 13 libraries was incredible. There was so much more laughing and interaction, and they gave so much more energy to us. We're like, wow, we actually really like this. This is fun.
Yeah, we got the same kind of we use Look, Don't See in our show, which is kind of, I think, popularized by David Ginn initially, but we learned some other techniques from Silly Billy, David Kaye.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you there, Mark, just for those who are listening, because we have, entertainers from well outside of magic. Just explain to them what Look, Don't See is.
Look, Don't See is when I, the performer, am doing something and something else is happening, say, behind me. That's the easiest way to understand it. Something is happening behind me that I don't see, but the kids can see. And they start telling me, literally screaming at the top of their lungs because I'm so dense I can't see it or don't realize that it's happening. And the gag that we use is I start juggling and I tell the kids, I am going to teach you how to juggle afterwards. But these balls, and they're leather bean bags, I start dropping them right in front of them. And I say, now these juggling balls drop too fast. And I go, help me think of something that would drop slower, say a feather or something. Well, my wife is standing behind me, apparently without me realizing it. And she's juggling scarves. And they drop very slowly, and they're very colorful. And the kids go, look behind you. And I go, behind my back. Anyway, we have this whole routine. It lasts like 5 minutes. And before you know it, the kids are screaming and yelling. They're going berserk because I am so stupid. Yeah. And then when I'll turn around and my wife will hide the scarves and act like nothing's going around. And I'll go, oh, there's nothing back there. And I start dropping the balls. They go mental again because she starts. That's the Look, Don't See thing that magicians can use. And we found this magical way to use it in our juggling act. And they love it. David Kaye is amazing magician. He gets this super reaction. Our reaction was exactly as potent and as powerful as anything any of the best magicians in the world have ever done. Why? Because David Kaye taught us how to do it, and he explained it. Yeah. And it does. It works magically. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that are on our website are based on that you'll see kids livid, or not livid, going mental because I'm dumb or dense. I can't see what's going on behind me. Look, don't see. It's wonderful.
What would you have been doing in that part of your show a few years ago?
Showing off.
Right.
Saying, here's 5 balls. Here's 4 ball Mills mess. It took me 3 years to learn how to do. Oh, really? Kids would be turning around, looking at, wandering off and telling me, the performer, you stink. You're boring. Yeah. I'm out of here. Now they're on the edge of their seats the whole show because of David Kaye's books, and we use Balloonatics now from your Build Your Magic show, and we're starting to adopt all of these magician techniques into a juggling and unicycle show. And trust me, cross-pollinating with magical techniques and movie techniques, works if it works in magic, it will work in juggling or unicycling.
Yeah.
I promise you, it'll work. It works as well because kids are all the same. It doesn't matter. We've been all over Iowa, Illinois, and Minnesota, and the kids had the exact same response. It didn't matter. They all laughed and pointed and did the same thing because look, don't see it. Works. It's like a science that we studied and it works. It employed and we'll use it forever because we know it works.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between being a show-off and entertaining.
Right.
Yeah, very much so.
I was a show-off. Right. Now I'm an entertainer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Give me entertainment value skills over show-off skills any day of the week.
Which actually makes it easier because we don't have to do our hardest stuff.
Yep.
They don't care. They want to see your coolest stuff. They want to see your funnest stuff, your funniest stuff, which makes it easier for us.
Yeah.
Krista Barrett, can I ask you, because you're now 21, you've grown up, you're now an adult, but you were starting doing this when essentially you were just coming out of, late childhood there. How is this, because I'm watching you now and your enthusiasm with this and your passion, and it's very clear that you have an understanding of this psychology. Did you grasp this at the same time that your parents did?
I think so. I learned how to unicycle when I was 7, but it took a while to start actually doing the festival shows. It wasn't until I was probably 13 or 14, probably more like 14, 15, that we started doing shows. But in between, I did some speech kind of competitions. I did some theater. I and my friends made a couple full-length movies, just kind of performing stuff here and there, and I really liked it. So when we started doing our festival shows, I was already comfortable in front of people, and but it was boring. Our shows were boring, and so now but I love that. A couple of years ago, we did a couple plays at a local community theater, and that was the first time it was before our library show really took off. It was the first time I was able to manipulate an audience in a good way, manipulate an audience's emotions. And I was like, this is so cool. I can make them feel things. I can make them happy. I can make them sad. So with kids, it's fun. You make them happy. You make them laugh. You make them excited. You make them passionate about learning things. That's what's fun for me, is just you make a kid happier for an hour. And I think that's what is cool for me.
If I might interject, though, to answer your question, which was about the psychology, we all are learning at the same time because we read the books together.
Yeah.
We're reading David Kaye's books. We're watching your videos on Build Your Magic show together. We're learning. We're all basically on the same page at the same point. We're learning the psychology together because that is the key. That's the secret.
Yeah.
What was the point? What was the trigger that got you to start this new direction at looking at this child psychology? Was there a point you were just going, look, our shows really aren't working? And did you get together in a huddle and go, what are we going to do about this?
Well, yeah, I was disappointed in my show. We were still being hired, not that we were actively marketing our show, but we were still being invited to do, say, fairs and festivals, just like, say, a stage show, and invited to perform
local stuff.
Once in a while, even libraries. Before we actively went after libraries, we did a few libraries. But I just didn't like the show because I wasn't getting the responses.
The thing was, it was a show and tell. And so everybody would ask us to come again because they thought it was interesting. So you had a whole crowd of interested people, but that doesn't give you any energy.
Right.
And so when we read David Kaye's book, we started saying, okay, we know we want to get some energy out of them. Let's just try using those things in our show.
See what happens.
Yeah.
And when they worked like he promised they would work, then we said, okay, we're onto something. And because our shows were more fun, because the audience was sending so much fun energy back at us, and I left glowing after the shows. I'm going, that was a blast.
That's fun.
That was so much fun. Let's see if we can do that for longer stretches of time rather than, say, just a couple minutes, and we're able to extend it and then manipulate it up and down like the roller coaster of fun, because you're not always going down when you're on a roller coaster. You got to build up and then go down, build up and then go down. When we started realizing that our shows were a lot more fun, we go, well, let's see if we can now our next goal is to make it a fun ride for, say, a primarily adult audience. And we know that I think that's going to be a little bit harder, tougher, but I think that we can do it. Maybe not the audience going crazy like little kids, but if we can get more laughs and more humor going where the audience is really enjoying themselves, then we're onto something, because now we can market ourselves more than just to say children audiences. At
this point, we don't like our festival show very much, and so it's real hard to market ourselves when we're not.
Yeah, we're not happy. But we live in Iowa.
It's still a show and tell.
We live in Iowa, and to Iowa's credit, they like family entertainers. Even though our show is like, I kind of MC it, and it's a show and tell. It's an elaborate show and tell. I mean, my boys are on 7-foot unicycles. Come on. I mean, that's pretty good stuff. And they're juggling on 7-foot unicycles. That is not easy. Yeah. But it's kind of a show and tell. I explain what they're going to do. I explain how hard it is. And look at this. Isn't it amazing? And Iowa crowds, they do like it. Yeah. They really do like it. They do enjoy it. I think they enjoy it more than we do. Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. We want to enjoy it more.
I would say that it would extend, it's not just Iowa crowds. I mean, that sort of act and seeing a family. I mean, there's something in the modern world where, essentially there's, talk of the family unit breaking down. To see a family out there as a combined unit and doing something like this it's more than just entertaining. I think it has a natural draw. Let's get on to that when we talk about the marketing. I just want to keep on this thing about what you've learned in your performing. You're saying that you now realise the value in writing a script.
I think we're going to pay somebody.
Yeah. That has been our biggest challenge is scripting. As a matter of fact, we were just at where were we? Oh, we performed a stage show in LeGrand, Iowa. And we were on late in the afternoon. That's when we were going to perform. Previous to our performance on that stage was a professional magician by the name of Keith West. He did 3 shows. We chatted with him in between every one of his shows. Actually, we helped him set up and we helped him tear down. But in between, he was talking about the value of scripting. And he says, I do not hesitate to pay $1,000 to $2,000 for somebody to write a script for my show. And he says, you will benefit from a professional who understands, say, juggling and unicycling or humor, the kind of stuff that you're going to do. He says, don't hesitate to spend the money if you have to get a professional script written, adapt it, modify it for yourself a little bit if you have to. And he says, I have made a fortune off of people writing a script for me because that is hard. He says, I am a magician. I'm not a script writer. And he goes, you guys should consider that yourself because the script, a non-scripted show like we've been doing for a long time, tends to ramble, tends to fizzle out at points where, we wonder, well, why did it fizzle out there? It's because it's not professional all the way through. It's me winging it at times and failing and forgetting what I'm supposed to say or where I'm supposed to go. So we run into entertainment dead ends, so to speak, entertaining dead ends, and then we pick it up a little bit because our show has visual value with the unicycling. But like Keith West said, there's a lot of performers who do interesting things, but say things not interesting. They're boring. And that's what happens with me, is we might do something that looks good, but we're not saying things that are interesting, that match the good.
Or funny.
Does that make sense? I mean, that's where it goes.
It makes 100%. And I love the idea that you see the value in spending what may be a couple of $1,000 because, if you spend that now, it's an investment that, a good show, a well-scripted show is a bookable show. And that just builds upon, and, it's self over time. You end up making money. That couple of $1,000 becomes a very small drop in the pond.
Keith watched our show, and he gave us a brutally honest critique. He says, you guys have the chops. I like you as people, but you were boring.
Yeah.
At times. Did he
say that?
Yeah, he says you need to script your show. You need to know, because there was times when I lost track of what I was going to say. Because really what we did, and we haven't performed library shows for a month, and this was our library show on a stage, and we hadn't rehearsed it. So I thought that I had, after doing 46 library shows, I wasn't going to have a problem. Well, guess what?
It was actually our festival show minus Krista.
Yeah, I wasn't even there.
She was
at
there.
a Comic-Con, so
That's
we were
right.
putting together pieces
It was a tougher
that
show.
were totally
So anyway, it was pretty obvious to him that I was struggling. And he goes, there was a couple segments where you were really funny, really entertaining, because that was my strong suit at that point in the show. But the points where she was gone and I was implementing my boys say or trying to take over and doing more myself, that's where he could tell, you need to script this show. He goes, that's the number one thing I can tell about your show. Script it, professionally script it from beginning to end, add a bunch of gags that are appropriate for this type of crowd or for your type of humor. And he goes, I guarantee you guys are, it'll up your game so much that you'll be very marketable.
Because what also happens is that you get this enormous confidence when you know your script off by heart. And that and you've seen that in my Build Your Magic Show course, is that when I do my show, I can bring it in at 40 minutes. I mean, exactly 40 minutes, because I know my script to the T. But what that does is it gives you the confidence if something goes wrong, that you can just go straight back on script, because you know that it works. From at any point you know that it works. But it also gives you the confidence then to explore, to go, okay, let's just branch out this way and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, no problems. You go back on script because you know that it works.
Right. That's where we stumble a lot.
So last summer we did a library show, and this summer we did a library show, and I made those scripts, and you know what? They were good. I enjoyed them, but it is a lot of work. Yeah. And for me, the thought of paying someone, I think I'd like that.
And it's harder because it's more of an adult audience. And we have 7 people. Right. And Dad and I are okay at kind of telling stories, kind of just ad-libbing, but the boys don't like doing that. And you shouldn't make 7. It's more like a play than a one per, it's not a 2-person show. It's
We're looking at our show now, because there's 7 members. We want to look at it more as a variety show where we're going to put in chunks of show so that each person or groups of people they're only responsible for 5 to 6 minutes of verbal or physical entertainment, so they can really hone in on that skill and be perfect at it, just like a circus. Perform more like a circus, a variety act.
Be a mini circus.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for. So it's not a daunting task for everybody to memorize 30 minutes of stuff.
And you were saying that being a 7-member family, you have to think like a travelling circus, that each member needs a performance skill and to contribute to the show as required.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
That's what I think we've been told will make our show more bookable and more watchable. It'd be a lot more fun, because you want action. You want a lot of action, and you don't want dead gaps of time. So like this last year, we worked very hard during our library show, where when one group was moving off, the next one was moving on exactly at the same time. I talked my way into the middle of the stage or the library, and I didn't waste any time. I was speaking to the kids, I caught the kids' attention right away. And that helped a lot, because the previous year we had these lulls. And man, when you lose some of these little kids that we're watching, were 2 and 3 years old,
like
4 or 5,
toddlers.
man, you lose them, and it's very hard to get them back. So we knew that was something we had to improve tighten up. We had to tighten up those lulls.
It's the most dangerous part,
and that's
when
where
you're switching
scripting.
people on stage, when you have a completely new person.
Yeah.
So
scripting definitely would help.
So have you got any horror stories where it all went wrong?
There was one show. It was after we had gone down and visited a guy in St. Louis, Missouri, and he had said, okay, you guys need to do this. You guys each need to make, more stuff to music, more routines. And so we're like, okay, let's do this. So we kind of changed our show around a little bit, made more routines to music, and we went to a nursing home, and we thought we had 45 minutes of material. We had about 30, maybe.
Not even that much, 20.
And you guys
the routines were new. We weren't comfortable with it. We dropped. I was probably one of the only times I wanted to sink into the ground. It was so bad.
We were embarrassed.
We were embarrassed. And, this stuff is cool, but we weren't comfortable, and it was really choppy, moving between things, and it was
a very tight place, too.
Yeah, it was a small area. There's
times when we've had to perform in areas that the unicycles are very awkward to work on. The floors might be slippery, so some of the tricks that she does are much more dangerous
or hard.
And so then, obviously, your show is limited. But that was a bad one.
That one was bad.
We flubbed up.
Yeah, we left we left our comfort zone of just do a show. You don't have a show yet, really, so just stick with the show until we tried to create something completely different.
Above
very
and beyond
very short notice, and it was a bad idea. Very bad idea.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you get the Hanson Family Show out for the the greater public to see. So you're now focusing on library shows. You said you in 2014 you performed 13 of them.
Yep.
You've just performed 46 libraries this past summer. And now your goal is to do 70 or more libraries in 2016. Now, I think that's wonderful because it indicates that you have a plan and obviously you've got strategies in place. So just talk us through your thinking.
Well, I'm going to turn this over to my wife because, and the reason why I want to do that is to disclaimer it by saying that her idea a couple years ago to initially get into the library system, I was not real keen on. I thought it was not a good idea, and it had to do with how much we were willing to get paid for each show. And this is where her idea came in. And it worked great, by the way. I give her an A for the deal, and I'm glad I did let her do it because it turned out this is probably a great marketing idea that any beginner entertainer can adopt. It's easy to do, and I'll let Krista take over.
Yeah, I listened, and comedians said they would go and do on stages, in bars or whatever. And I thought, how can the open mics, how can we do that? We just don't have that kind of setting. And so last summer, and Mark's been reluctant to do it. And I said, I'm just going to do this because it's never going to happen if I don't push it. So then I just called local libraries near us. And I did all the small ones that I knew couldn't normally afford a show. And I just called them and said, we're going to be doing a show for whatever you can afford. And so I got 13 libraries nearby, and I wanted to do nearby so it wouldn't cost us a lot of money to get there. And they all were, of course, very excited. And after each show, we asked if we could do a video testimonial, and that gave us 13 awesome video testimonials, and a great way to see what the kids liked. And from the first show we did to the last show, we learned something every time. We tightened up our show. We got rid of too much stuff. It was wonderful.
It was amazing.
It was well worth.
And like I say, I was reluctant only because I was thinking more about we need to make money because I was unemployed. We need to make money, so we can't give our show away for free. But you know what? Every librarian paid what they could. We always got our gas money, and sometimes we got a lot more than I thought that they could afford. But the most important thing was experience and testimonials. That was the genesis of our ability then to market to a wider librarian audience. Librarians are a real tight-knit community. And if you make a librarian happy or 13 librarians happy, you've just made 1,000 librarians happy because they trust each other. If they like the Hanson family, booking a show to a library becomes literally a piece of cake.
They call you.
They call us, yeah.
Okay, that's a great point. So how are librarians to work with? I mean, what are the buttons that you need to push with a librarian? What's their problems and concerns as things that they go to sleep worrying about that you know?
Well, when it comes to entertainers, they're concerned that the entertainer is going to be appropriate, is going to be safe with children. I mean, they're risking their reputation when they bring entertainers in. They're turning their kids. They're not the parents' kids anymore. They're their kids over to you for up to an hour.
Yeah.
And they want to know for sure that you're going to treat those kids with kid gloves, that they're going to not just have a good time or learn something, but that they're going to be safe with you. And if you can do that, I mean, once all the librarians found that out, that they knew that we were wonderful to work with, that really good with kids, make the kids feel like $1 million. By the time the kids walked out of there, they were pleading with the librarians to bring us back the next year. I mean, we're getting testimonies. The kids were testifying to the librarians how much fun that they had. Now, working with librarians, I couldn't imagine anybody who was easier to work with, more wonderful to work with than a librarian.
Yeah.
They are awesome. I mean, we never force them to pay in advance or put any money down. We know they're going to pay us. We know that when we get there, they're accommodating and kind and sweet. I mean, it's just, they're amazing. If I could work with one person for the rest of my life and all I had to ever do was library, I would do libraries with librarians. Yes. I love librarians. They're wonderful people. And if you treat them, we always got there way early. We moved stuff and promised to move everything back and take care of it. We just took over the show. We said, we're going to do this and make you the hero for the day. Mm-hmm. And when we get done, everybody's going to say, man, are you smart for bringing the Hansons here?
We also have a real good story to our show. We did the heroes. They loved our hero stories. Were all about children who did heroic things.
That was a big deal.
They absolutely loved that theme. So. And the year before is about inventors and talking about kid inventors and adult inventors. It was they really enjoyed that part.
So marketing to librarians is pretty easy. They actually like to have people send them emails.
Right.
They like that. Now, they do get a lot of emails. That's not their first source or reason for hiring you, no matter how well written your email is or how many promises you make about how great your show is. They really like word of mouth. The way that we broke into libraries is, like my wife mentioned, we got a circle of influence of 13 libraries near us. Then what we did within the next year was we went to what's called a library showcase. That's where in Iowa there's 3 regions of library showcases where librarians are brought to. Well, unfortunately, the very first one we went to was the last showcase of the season, and we were not actually in the showcase, but we went there to observe. We saw other performers. A librarian showcase is a bunch of librarians get together. There's a bunch of performers who perform for them, and then they pick and choose the show that they might hire. So we talked to librarians, and then we talked to the guy that promoted that, who set that up. And he invited us then, not to the Iowa showcase because that was over, but to the Illinois showcase. Illinois is a state that borders Iowa. And he invited us there, and then we performed for the Illinois librarians, and that's really how we got a lot of libraries out of that, where we started. That's why we got 46 shows, was from his word of mouth and from those librarians.
Now, unfortunately, not all states have showcases.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, that doesn't.
You were saying before that you need to get that librarian's confidence. The Hanson family, and just having again that name and that word family. Do you leverage off that in your marketing?
They love it.
Yeah, they do. One of the testimonials that we got is a video testimonial on our website, on the library page at the bottom. We got about probably 8 or 10 librarians giving about a 1-minute video testimonial, all in one testimonial. There was 3 librarian. One was a librarian. One was an assistant. Anyway, it doesn't matter. At the end of that testimonial, all 3 of them said, "We love the fact that you're a family. That's why we brought you here." Because a lot of these kids are single parent, have a lot of broken family relationships, and they go, your family working together and doing things like you do was why we hired you and why we would bring you back again. Yeah. They love families.
Let's talk about your website. I'm looking at it now, and there's a lot of things I like about this. Number one is that it's when you go to the home page, it's very, very clear what you do. It's very clear, and it's uncomplicated. There's a picture at the top with the 7 of you in these lovely bright coloured tops, all with your unicycles in. I'm guessing it's a cornfield.
It's a bean field.
Soybean field or something like that. But you know, like, I mean, you're it says the Hanson family, and you unicycle. And you know, and then you've got two boxes. You've got a blue box with library programs. Click here for library program info with a wonderfully interactive photo of all these little kids learning to scarf juggle. And then you've got a red box with school assemblies and some laughing kids on there. And click here. So there's no confusion about when you come to your site. who you are and what you offer. And then when you go to the library programs, and I must say too that your site's in a responsive theme, which is really good. And I'll just explain that for listeners who might not know. Responsive theme is now people are viewing websites more and more, actually way more, on tablets and smartphones. That the old, way websites were made, when you look at that on a smartphone, it basically cuts everything out or it makes it too small and unusable. A responsive theme, and this is really easy to check, everyone. If you're sitting at a desktop and you just click on the side of your browser, so the little arrows come up and you drag it across so it becomes smaller and smaller, you'll see the website change, and you'll see how it actually, if you drag it into a narrow column on your desktop, you'll see how it looks on an iPhone. And yours is a beautifully responsive theme. And so again, you're not losing any information. So if you click on your library program, and you go to your library programs, then again, it's really clear. It starts out with a 60-second video at the top. I encourage everyone to go and have a look at this video, because it just tells you what you need to know in a very clear manner with no rambling. How was that video made?
I made that with on the Mac. I wrote the whole script. I did all the audio, and not ScreenFlow. It's Keynote. It's all just Keynote.
Right.
And
so
then, of course, I ScreenFlowed it. I mean, I did Keynote with all the slides, and then I used what's called ScreenFlow, which is a Camtasia style screen capture.
Yeah.
And I did the audio. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I wasn't even really meaning so much the technology of it, but it's more the scripting of it is well. Congratulations to you, because I would pay someone to
that was my best one that I've ever.
Yeah. Don't say that. Right on it. Just say they're all like that. And then you have photos of the different sorts of routines you do. You have these gravity-defying unicycle tricks, and there's a wonderful photo there. And then you have storytelling, and then you have Mark and Krista there in looks like a science program or something. You with a white lab coat on. Then you have mesmerizing. Juggling routine, club passing, great action photo. And then you go down to these really great interactive photos of kids with spinning plates and their big faces and scarf juggling. And the whole library looks like a hive of fun. But the best bit, then you go down even further. Then you have a clip from your show, the danger trick. And go and have a look. It's a lot of fun. You see what it actually looks like in there.
That was our best danger trick.
Right.
That girl was a
great.
Blast. She was awesome.
She was a good bit of talent. But the best bit is what you're talking about before. You go down the bottom, and then librarians review the Hanson show. And you watch the video, and you've put together, you said there were 14, I think, or so in there, of these testimonials. And then below that, you have about 8 or 9 face shots and the names and the phone numbers of the librarians. So, and then you have your call to action, your contact info down the bottom. Now, if I was a librarian booking, everything I need is on that page. Everything. There's no confusion about what it is on booking, who it is, and what other librarians think about it, and then how do I get in contact with these people. So well done. Let's just talk about the testimonials. A big problem with getting people to do video testimonials is actually getting them to agree to it, because they, people don't like being on camera. So you've done really well. These people are sitting there happy, and it's all framed nicely. It's good sound. Just talk us through how you actually, beguiled them with your charm to get them to do this.
Well, that is kind of it. I mean, we did beguile them with charm. When we, like I mentioned, we get there early, and we treat the librarian like the Queen of England. I mean, we treat her like $1 million. And then what we technically we do 3 shows. I call it the show before the show. We play with the children before we perform. The early birds, we play with spinning plates or what we call bubble sticks or whatever. We get to know the kids a little bit and relax them and know that they're going to have fun. Then we do the show, and we do the best show we can, and we make sure they have a lot of fun. Then we do the show after the show, where some of those pictures that you're seeing of all the kids juggling, and there's like 4 or 5 things that we do with the kids. We bring a box of puppets for the little ones. We have spinning plates. I teach juggling. We have paper balance cones, and the kids are going crazy with fun. And the librarians are sitting back there with a big smile on their face going, boy, was I smart for bringing the Hansons here. Yeah. Anyway, by the time we get done with that much interaction and that much fun, we politely ask, may we have a short review of our show? You don't have to do it if you don't want to. My daughter has. Sometimes we do it on an iPhone, and sometimes we do it on a DSLR.
I do. I have a DSLR camera.
Anyway, we just say it's very real, and we go, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. And they go, I don't like doing videos, but I'll do it for you because if you get it while the iron's hot, so to speak, they're willing to do it. If we were to come back, we've only had one say no out of 40, out of 50 or 60 now. We've only had one that would not do it.
Yeah. And it was
okay. It was okay.
We didn't push her.
We didn't push her, and we go, you don't have to. That's fine.
Yeah,
but all the other ones, 1 out of 60 is not bad.
Yeah.
And we thought that it was going to be harder, but we studied into testimonials, and they go, as long as you've done a good show and they're happy, they will usually do it if you politely ask them and say, it's just keep it short, just 10, 20 seconds is all we need, and just say, what did you think of the show?
Yeah. We actually have a little card that we give them with like the 3 questions.
A couple of questions.
So they can have that in their hand to refer to because
they don't want to
they
look
get
stupid.
kind of the stage fright and can't think. So it's really nice for them to have that. And we take all of the show out of their hands so much that they kind of get to relax during it. So we want to give something to you because you guys did so much for us.
Yeah, we over-deliver.
Can I ask you what your 3 questions are that you put on the card?
Are they? Oh, they're right here.
Hold on a second.
All right. Okay, so our card says library show review questions. And the questions are, what was the audience reaction? What did you like best about the show? Would you recommend the Hanson family? And any closing thoughts?
Great. And they don't have to answer them all. We say answer any or all of them, and just do it the way you feel most comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And like I say, they usually don't say no. And some of them speak for quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Some of them are gushing and glowing. Some of them are a little more reserved, but that's okay. Any testimonial you get from a librarian is a good testimonial.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because again, I'm looking at this testimonial section, and it's not one little testimonial down there, and it's not just a quote, and you've put Jane V, Iowa. There's something. It's people's faces, their names, their phone numbers. It builds massive credibility for what you do. And just on a few technical things here, one thing I'm going to congratulate you on, the images that you have of the librarians' faces, you've framed them all consistent in the size, and they're consistent in lighting as well, which is really because, when you go into libraries in different locations, it's all different. Now, I don't know whether you were thinking about that, but you've actually achieved something that's right.
I was in printing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota for 25 years, and I was in pre-press, and I learned the computer and digital, Photoshop and stuff like that. So I have some technical expertise in that area. Now, you don't have to be a guru in Photoshop nowadays because there's a lot of online software that you can use and modify pictures a little bit. And I tried to make them all look pretty much the same. And a lot of those are not actually pictures of the librarians. They're snippets that I screen captured off the video and then resized. And if you size them small enough, they don't look pixelated.
And that is definitely one, as technology improves and that you can have an iPhone in your pocket, the quality, the HD vision that comes out of there is that you can get screenshots, for your show, for your website of your shows with such little thought that goes into it. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah. Listen, but I just wanted to add to your credit too, Julian, the pictures that you see on the librarian page of the kids smiling or the kids with the spinning plates and stuff came from your website, from your blog. It's called The Money Shot.
Yes,
and I had heard of the money shot until I had listened. And by the way, we've listened to all your podcasts because they're so good. But the money shot one, the talking about how to get or what to look for in a picture came directly from your podcast. After I listened to that podcast, I go, duh, I bet you we've got 1,000 pictures that are money shots. Yeah. And honestly, we have so many good ones now, either from a video or directly from my daughter taking pictures, because she now knows what to look for to create a money shot. I got 1 million of them. I can't even use them all. But that's what gave me the idea to put those pictures on our page, because like your podcast suggests, if you put a money shot on your page, it's worth a lot of money. It's easy to book somebody when they see, oh, look at that kid. The kid's having a blast. Yeah. Look at that. Look at all the action. Anyway, that's where I got the idea, and that's why we started putting money shots on our page. And after I got it done, I go, that's Julian deserves a credit for the idea to give it to us.
Yeah, and it's not about being an expert at any of this. It's just about looking for information and techniques that are out there and actually doing them on a weekly basis, finding something else. How can I improve my site? Just one little part of it every week, and it's 52 weeks in a year. And then within 5 years, it's, 250 things that you've done. It's just about application. Look, we're coming up to time. Well, actually, we've gone well over, but I've been so interested. I could just keep going for ages. But listeners actually have lives that they have to get on with out there. Look, I on behalf of the Kids Entertainer audience, I really do thank you. I encourage you to keep going. I'm so impressed with what you're doing, Mark. I'm impressed that you're 61 years old, and you're unemployed, and you're going, I'm going to make a career, a business for myself. There's so many things that I've learned from you from this chat. And again, I'd love to be able to come back in a year or two's time and just see how the Hanson family are going. And how if it's 7 of you, whether it's 5 of you, whether it's 4 of you.
You're living in Las Vegas.
That's it. Okay.
Florida. My kids want to go to Florida. It'll be Florida.
No,
that's
fine. It has
fine.
to be somewhere dry.
Okay. For the winter.
We'd love
for the winter.
in a year. Give us a year or two, and we'd love to come back and chat with you again.
Okay. I'll hold you to it. Thanks again.
Okay.